Hello, it's me, Rick. If you're new here, welcome. If not, welcome back. This is episode 6 of Opolis Inc. And today we automate infinite iron, we have a quick trip to the Nether, and we also have a look at advanced farming bugs. So follow along. Okay, although it might look otherwise, not much has changed from the last episode. Let me just run you through what I did. First of all, I arguably had too much fun with the distraction gadget and I tear it down completely this hill. I'm gonna flatten it eventually and then we'll decorate it at some point. I moved all our machines that were there to over here and moved our power temporarily up here. I've also completed this first room of our base and I've added this corridor where I think I'm going to add a bigger room over here. I've then added more drawers that are connected to the digital miner who's been excavating ores for us. And lastly, I've added more resource generators over here. We currently have 2,200 basic blocks. Now, on the last episode, we left that we had just crafted the Nether passport, which authorizes us to travel to the Nether. So it seems only right to start this episode by making a portal to the Nether. We'll temporarily make it over here. And I don't know you, but I like to make my portal a 3x3. And let's go. First thing I'm gonna do is add a waypoint. We can do that just by pressing B and saving it. In the quests, we have this piglins task that says piglins can be found in the Nether and will trade with you. Give them gold ingots and see what you get back. When trading with this, please make sure you're wearing a piece of golden armor. By trading with them, we'll in fact receive some piglin receipts that we will eventually need to get advanced trading bucks. The first thing we need to do is to get some netherrack and then turn it into nether bricks. While I'm here, I'm also gonna look for some quartz really quick. And I also want to steal these shroom lights because I like to use them in my buildings. While I was exploring, I also found some weeping dust, officially completing these two quests in the alien flora. Now that we have our nether bricks, we can use the basic trading license to craft the advanced trading license. Just like that. We'll now be able to use the advanced trading license with piglin receipts to generate advanced trading bucks. We'll in fact need 64 advanced trading bucks to obtain the beehive portal stabilizer. Now, I clearly don't have enough gold to start trading with piglins, so we better get on the next goal of today, which, as you may have guessed, it's improving our ore production. To do that, the first thing we're gonna need is a bunch more black bricks, as we'll need to create the multiblock from the casting mod to smelt ores way faster than we did before. We will then need to melt some black bricks and put a simple controller into the solidifier. The solidifier is going to transform the simple controller into a multi-block controller. We'll also need to transform a simple tank into a multi-block fuel tank, as well as a piece of glass into a multi-block coolant tank. And lastly, we'll need to transform a simple solidifier into a multi-block solidifier. On top of that, we'll also need to craft a multi-block regulator, which is crafted really easily like that. Now we have all the elements we need for our multi-block casting. If we hold G while hovering over any of these blocks, we'll open up this guide over here. I've already read it. If you guys want to have a quick look, you can pause the video. What we need to do now is place the multi-block fuel tank down here. And I've already connected it to the lava generator. We'll put our solidifier here with a coolant on top. The multi-block regulator can go here and the controller can go here. Now, the multi-block has been created, however, this coolant tank is not actually working, as this layer will all need to be 2 blocks tall. I'm quickly gonna make some more black bricks, and I'll be right back. We now finally have enough, and that's our structure completed. What we need to do is activate the multi-block controller, and we can now pump some raw iron ore to melt. To start, we'll use just 3 raw irons, which will slowly get melted into the controller. What we need next is to attach a resource generator that is going to generate stone for us. We can increase its speed by adding certain blocks over here. For example, you see that if I add a block of copper, it goes down from 220 to 140 ticks. To see which blocks you can use, you can just click on U, go over here on speed blocks, and you'll see that they have different properties. We can then pump this stone into the multi-block solidifier. and we can turn the solidifier on. Now this is going to combine the melted iron with the stone, and it's going to generate some iron ore for us. As you can see, those 3 pieces of raw iron made 2 iron ore. What we need to do next is move this iron ore into a combiner. Let's make sure to set the input on the right. We clear every side, it's going to be quicker. And let's select input. Now the combiner to work is also going to need some basic mining blocks. Each iron ore is going to generate 2 raw iron for us. I'm then going to select extra at the bottom, and I'll pipe our mining blocks underground until they reach the combiner. I'm not going to do anything fancy here. I'll just use some basic logistical transporter down here, and I connected them to the combiner. Now that the blocks have reached the combiner, it transformed our 2 iron ore into 4 raw iron. You remember we have started with 3. We can then place a basic enriching factory on top. In the config, we'll put the input at the bottom, and in the config of the combiner, we'll put the output at the top with auto eject on. This will now start transforming 3 raw iron into 4 iron dust. What we have to do next is connect this basic enriching factory to the controller. And we'll do that once again with some logistical transport. Let's make sure to disconnect this cable. And let's configure this front side to output with auto eject on. The iron dust will now be pumped back into the controller. It will be melted. It will end up once again over here, mixed to the stone, then into the combiner, and so on, making it an infinite source of iron. Now, all I'm missing is power in these machines. So let me go ahead and do that. And I've attached power. I'm going to add a drawer over here, just to act as a buffer. We can quickly configure it to iron dust, and now we can set these to export. Now, although it may not like it, we're actually producing infinite iron. What is slowing us down is the solidifier. To speed the process up, we can simply add coolant to the coolant tank. Coolants that we can use are water, glowstone, ender, diamond, chilled water, iced water, and supercoolant. I'm gonna use the sink once again as an infinite water source to use water as a coolant for the time being. As you can see, our machines are struggling with power at the minute, so I've been working on getting some new solar generators. While doing that, I've also been working on getting enough basic power bucks to get an unbreakable basic power license. We'll need 256 of them. While I'm working on getting basic power bucks, I've also realized that our digital miner has stopped running. It in fact ended up mining all 1000+ blocks. So it's now time to move it. I've moved it down here. We can now start it again, and it's gonna mine 1642+ blocks for us. We finally have these 256 basic power bucks, and we can go and claim the quest. We can submit them over here and obtain the unbreakable basic power license. The unbreakable basic power license will make it easier for us to obtain basic power bucks, which we'll need in a metallurgic infuser to make the electric paste, which we'll then use to make batteries that we are going to sell in the market to get advanced power bucks. Although it's not gonna be fully automated at the minute, it's still a step in the right direction. Now that I bought this advanced solar generator, I placed them here, connected our cables all the way around and down here, and connected it to our machines. One last thing I'd like to do to improve our energy production is to craft an advanced tier installer. We'll need 2 of these, 2 osmium ingots, a piece of wood, and 4 infused alloys. Now we can shift right click on the basic energy cube, and this will be upgraded to advanced energy cube. We'll now be able to hold 6.4 million Fe, creating a good enough backup for our energy, since it's currently working mainly by solar generation, which obviously doesn't work when it's raining or night. The last remaining things to do is to use our facades and cover up all these cables. I'm also going to install a basic tier installer in the combiner, and select auto sort on. As you'll have noticed, from the 3 pieces of raw iron and 2 pieces of iron ore, we now have way more. This drawer is eventually gonna start backing up in iron dust, which will then automate into smelting, and we'll have infinite ingots. Our controller is starting to back up in iron dust as well as molten iron, so I think I'm gonna extend its height of a bit. Probably 2 layers should do the job. It now has twice as much capacity. My plan is to eventually use this same mechanism to generate way more gold than we currently have and be able to trade it with piglings for advanced trading blocks. The next step in our automation is to craft a logistical sorter. We'll quickly move this drawer up one block, place the sorter underneath, and rerouted the cables here as I'd like to have a cleaner look, and I'm gonna cover it with some facades. We will also need to take our basic smelting factory and move it down here and connect that as well with some basic logistical transporter. Always making sure in the config to put the bottom as input and clearing any other side config. I'm now gonna connect it to this power. I'll once again move these cables down on the ground so that we can facade it. Okay, now that all the cables have been covered, all we need to do is go on our logistical sorter, add a new filter, click on item stack, and we'll now need to insert the iron dust. We can either do it manually from our inventory, we can use the JEI, we can simply search iron dust and drag it down here. We'll then click on save and select round robin on. Now, as you can see, it already started before I selected the round robin on, which means that the multiblock controller hasn't received any iron dust, but it all ended up in this melting factory. If we now move it back into the drawer, we'll now send some into this melting factory and some into the controller. The last thing we need to do to complete this automation is add a drawer on top of the factory. Select the output on top with auto eject on, and we now have iron ingots getting infinitely produced for us. Now, although these may look clean to some, I don't really like how much the cables are visible, nor how asymmetric the building is, so I might change it at some point in between episodes. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is fully automate our production of basic farming blocks, obtain an unbreakable basic farming license, as well as start this gene splicing task, which requires us to make this SP33D gene or speed gene. This can be made in a precision sawmill with one basic farming box, and we'll be able to use it in a combiner to then genetically modify our crops. As you may remember, we have our cloche here that's been producing wheat for us. The first step is to grab some of this wheat and sell it, just until we have enough to use these basic farming box to purchase 2 cloches. I'm now going to craft a precision sawmill, which is crafted like this, with 4 iron ingots, a steel casing, 2 infusion alloys, and 2 basic control circuits. It's generally only been about 5 minutes, and we already have 250 iron ingots. This is working really well. Now let's craft our precision sawmill, and we can place it here. We now need a couple more basic farming blocks, and we need to saw them over here. This noise is horrible, let me turn it down. And that's our SP33D gene. We can now quickly swap the stuff. I'll go in the combiner down here and modify some of our potatoes. And that's our 4 genetically modified potatoes. Okay, it turns out that GM potatoes are basically useless. I thought they'd be growing faster. Instead, it's just a way to duplicate your crops, which it's still useful, I suppose, but at the minute we don't really have the capacity to do that. What we do instead is work towards sculked crops. To do that, we'll need a piece of sculk, which can be found in the deep dark and requires silk touch to be mined. Lucky for us, getting an enchanted book with silk touch is really easy. It only requires 8 basic farming blocks around 1 book. Let's craft it. And now that we have plenty of iron, making an event shouldn't be that difficult. And we can put silk touch on our diamond pickaxe. Now, the absolute easiest way to find the deep dark is to use a nature compass, which is crafted with a regular compass for logs and for saplings. The way the nature compass works is that by holding it and right-clicking, we'll be able to see all the different types of biome that exist in Minecraft. We can click up here on search and write deep dark. There we go. Double click it, and we'll now see up top on the left corner of the screen the distance, which is 770 block, and it seems like it's towards this way. Now, if I open my map with J, I can see this temple, but I'm not sure if it's related to the deep dark, so I'll leave it for now. Finding these was way harder than I was anticipating, but we finally have the sculk blocks. I obviously don't want to risk an encounter with the warden, so I'm going home. Now that we have the sculk, we can proceed with our next tasks, which says placing a sculk block underneath the farmland that a crop is grown on will cause it to become sculked when it's harvested. So let's do that. We can place a sculk block here, piece of dirt on top, and then farm it, and we can farm our potato. To speed up the growth, I'm gonna use some bone meal, like that. And we can now pick it up. I have been growing some off camera, and I actually did get a sculked potato. It seems like that the issue was that I broke the crop instead of just right clicking. There we go. Now that we got our 4 sculked potatoes, we can go ahead and craft an advanced farming license. There we go. Right, going back to our cloches, I placed them here, added potatoes, and swapped that one from wheat to potatoes as well, and put a drawer over here. The only reason why I planted a different crop is because I've got so much wheat already that if I sell 2 crops to get enough basic farming bucks to obtain an unbreakable basic farming license, it's simply gonna be faster. Not by much, but it's still faster. My plan originally was to grow the sculked crops in a cloche to get the basic farming bucks way faster. Although it seems that in one of the recent updates, this is no longer possible, so I'm gonna have to go the long route. I'll quickly get an unbreakable basic farming license, and then we'll work to get an advanced farming bucks. Getting these basic farming bucks is actually been extremely painful and slow, so I think I'll just go ahead and make the advanced farming bucks. These can be obtained in the market with an advanced farming license and some of the sculked crops that we've been making. And after an incredibly slow and painful process, I have enough advanced farming bucks to get an infusion altar. The infusion altar from Mystical Agriculture is used to generate seeds. Seeds like copper seeds, for example, which once they're grown, they'll give us copper essence, which can be used in a solidifier to generate copper ore. If we place it here, we'll now see the shadows of the 8 infusion pedestal that we need. Infusion pedestals can be bought from the catalog with even more advanced farming bucks. We'll need 8 infusion pedestal in total, which means that we need 4 advanced farming bucks. We now have 4 advanced farming bucks, which we can use in the catalog to purchase 8 infusion pedestals, and we can now place them here to complete the structure. Now, this seems like a good time to conclude the episode. If you followed up to this point, thank you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you liked the video, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!